Welcome to Baffling Cyclops. I'm David.
I'm Pepper Proxy.
And Halloween just happened.
Yay! We didn't have many trick-or-treaters, though.
No.
But we did have the most important ones.
Right. We had Blondie and Brother from across the street came. And my favorite part of Halloween, even more than them coming to trick-or-treat, was them warning us that their costumes were scary this year.
So scary.
They were so scary. And then trying to get us to guess what their costumes were.
I know.
It was a bat and a witch.
They're the most precious. Aren't they just precious?
They are. But
I love them.
I know the funny part was they were almost warning us so we weren't too scared.
Too afraid when they showed
up.
Yeah.
Because it was like,
yeah.
They were like, no video game characters for us this year.
Yeah.
No princesses. We're going pure horror.
Okay, but
Stephen
also,
King, Clive Barker, horror.
with a little bit of sparkle.
Yeah, well, Saw movie horror for 3 and 4 year olds.
Okay.
I'm a bat.
So can I just say, Brother, when he lifted up his little arms, he's 3, probably 3.5 now, lifted up his little arms with the bat wings. And they're both very verbal.
Yeah.
So she is maybe 6.5, but she speaks as though she's like 12. And Brother is 3.5, and he's like, and has the vocabulary and the language skills of like an 8-year-old. So it's just precious.
Yes, and my favorite part of the bat costume and the witch costume is Mom did like a makeup black mask around their eyes, so they were a little hidden beyond just because their faces were out. So she scaried him up, but his black mask was also a bat. So he was a bat with a bat on his face. And that was very cute.
Yes.
And Blondie, his sister, was very concerned because their uncle had purchased them trick-or-treat bags with their actual names on them.
Yeah, he had them embroidered for them.
They had them embroidered, but he obviously ordered them over the internet and didn't see them in person because they were very different sizes, and hers was smaller.
Okay, so I don't think that's what happened. I don't think Uncle has kids. And so I don't think he understands how important equity is, especially for Blondie.
Right. So Brother got a Frankenstein bag that was more than enough.
That appeared to be bigger.
That I would say could hold 30 full-size candy bars. Whereas the black cat bag he got for Blondie could hold 15 full-size candy
And it
bars.
was so cute because it was a head. It was like round and it looked like a cat head.
It was perfect for a costume.
Were you impressed with how I tried to calm her jets with that? But I think I taught her some geometry.
Yeah, you were like, maybe it's...
the cubic square inches are the same.
Yeah. I don't think that was the case, though, but...
I don't either, but it made her ponder.
It did make her think.
Because Mom and Dad both said yes. Yes, Blondie. I almost used his real name. Brother's bag looks bigger, but it might not be.
Yeah, but it is. His Frankenstein head was bigger. So that was the best part of Halloween. We really only had 2 groups of trick-or-treaters, Blondie and Brother, and then kind of a big group. Well, I had an interesting news story today that I don't think you've heard about.
Oh, please share.
I thought was interesting, which is there's this company called MSCHF, and it's one of those internet companies where they just cut the vowels out of the name, so it's MSCHF.
Can I just tell you, those kind of companies remind me of that mind freak magician.
Well,
what's his name?
Chris
Angel.
Yeah. So MSCHF, they're the ones, they do mischievous projects, and they're the ones that did the blood shoes for Lil Nas X.
Okay.
The Satan shoes.
I just flippin' love that guy.
Yeah.
I love him.
Where they bought the Nikes and then added blood and all of that.
The whole thing was genius. Yeah.
So they did another project that I wanted to give your opinion of. So they bought an original Warhol drawing from the mid-1950s, so before he was super, probably called Fairies.
So was that a pencil drawing or?
Just like a pen drawing. Just like
Okay.
so it's three
Okay.
naked ladies and they're jumping rope. So two of the women are swinging the rope and one is jumping in the middle of the rope.
Okay.
And they bought it for $20,000,
Okay.
original drawing, and then they made 999 indistinguishable copies of it.
I love it. I
So
love it.
so they had
Copies like with a
like
machine or by
no
hand?
they like well it is by machine, but they had it use the original kind of ink.
Yeah.
Then they aged it. Even the original they marked with their stamp on the back, and they put a signature on all of the copies that they did of it as well.
Isn't that copyright though? Because you can't, even if you own a piece of art, you're.
Well, listen
Okay.
to what they did.
Okay.
So then they now have 999 copies and the one original. They mixed the original in with the copies
I love it.
and destroyed any indication of which one was which and sold them for $250 each.
I love that so much.
So they took a $20,000 piece of art and they turned it into $250,000. And one of the people out of those thousand
Have
owns the
The
original.
original. And the other ones like the knockoffs might be worth more than the original.
Well,
And more people can enjoy it.
and their argument about the copyright issue is they've created an entirely new work of art because
How?
the art is now the copies that it's part of. They didn't destroy the original, but now there's this larger piece with all of these copies, and they've created this art experience for people.
I'm for it.
This story. Well, see, that's why
I'm for I know. I can't believe I'm for it, but I am. But I also think it would be different if that happened, but the artist was still alive and creating and somehow losing out on their talent and their skill. Like if it was Mark Ryden, for
Right.
instance, and like, well, he's a bad example because he's a millionaire. Like Billy Davis, because we have his prints and I'm looking
Yeah.
at them. Like it would suck if that happened to him,
right.
but
There's something about the Warhol experience because
yeah, because that was Andy Warhol. Like it was his. I think Andy Warhol would just be tickled.
right. And their philosophical point
Yeah.
was, and I'm going to read a quote from their site. Paradoxically, for artists, successfully merching down an object, making merchandise of an object, equals consistent increased revenue. The reduces the value of the original piece of art, but it increases revenue to the artist. So if the artist can make T-shirts and stamps and other stuff out of the piece of art, and they get more money for it, they increase the revenue, but they decrease the value of the original piece of art. So I just thought that was an interesting point too, that they were saying that they were showing people how to increase revenue and decrease the value of the original piece of art, because the original piece of art, the value goes to the person who buys it. So if it goes up over time, that value, it doesn't go back to the original artist, it stays with the piece of art itself.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking like it has to do with who the artist is. Because I'm also thinking like of Brandon Bird, who works so hard and is like such a talent that if that happened to him and he wasn't in a collaboration with that company, I would have a totally different opinion.
Well, it's really interesting because I do think they chose a very specific artist and situation to do it with. So I don't think they created the worst possible case scenario, which you could easily do, where you were ripping off a poor artist who didn't eat, and then this MSCHF company is making money off of that artist. And this is basically saying, what is the piece of art?
And it does,
Which Andy Warhol asked as well.
yeah, for sure. And it feels like it's more authentic to art than, I love Jeff Koons, but I understand why people don't like his art and
Or consider it even art.
don't consider it
Yeah.
art. But I personally love his work. But there are companies that make balloon animal sculptures,
Which we
and
have
I have
some of.
some. I
Yeah.
have some of them, but that kind of feels like even less of a artistic choice and respect for art than far less than this.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, one of the other things, and you bring up a really interesting point, and one of the things that this also brought up for me is in photography, the person who has the picture taken of them does not own the art. So if you're out
I don't
on
think they should.
well, that's fine. But then you get situations where, like I'm going to use a Housewives example. Lisa Rinna just got sued by a paparazzi company because the paparazzi took pictures of her and published them, and she put them on her Instagram, and they sued her for 40 grand fee to
Yeah.
put it on her Instagram. And another example recently, which I thought was interesting, was the guy who was the baby on the cover of Nirvana's Nevermind.
I know. I say.
He's done various things to try and profit off it over the years.
Yeah.
But he thinks now he should get paid again for being the artist's model on that, even though
Well,
he's unrecognizable.
There was more to that too, though, because he was a baby and really didn't have a say in it, and his genitalia can be seen if you're looking for it.
Yeah, but so the question is, he doesn't own that picture.
And he shouldn't. He didn't take the picture.
Right. So that's really interesting. And do you know the monkey lawsuit too?
No, tell me about that.
Well, there was I can't remember which organization it was, and I don't want to push off, but a nature photographer put his camera out in the middle of a field, and he was getting it set up, and a monkey came up and pressed the button and took his own picture, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's the first primate selfie," and then one of the animal organizations sued, saying the photographer doesn't own that picture.
You can't sue on behalf of an animal.
But that's what they were saying. So they were trying to imbue personhood on the animal and say. So anyway, I just think it's all very interesting.
Yeah.
Like who owns what art?
Well, I
when?
think the thing with Lisa Rinna that's weird is, I used to be a huge fan of hers, and now I'm like, because I loved how she was trying to produce the show, and now I'm just like, oh, you're kind of gross. But she didn't sign a release for that paparazzi photo. I wouldn't be surprised if she called the paparazzi to say, take my photo, but she didn't sign a release. But when you're talking about artist models that are human, not primates, I was thinking about the people that posed for Robert Mapplethorpe, and I'm just like, okay, what if one of those, mostly they were men, and they're somewhat graphic or very graphic. I wonder if any of those men would be wanting to use that photography as their own or somehow do something with it because it's their bodies.
Yeah.
But they also signed a release. But I also think Robert Mapplethorpe would figure work with them. I don't know. As an artist.
Yeah. And I just thought it was all a very interesting gray area.
Yeah.
Of and I think that one of the interesting things the MSCHF people are doing is distinguishing between value and revenue for a piece of art. And to call that into question, I think is a really important thing to do in our day and age.
Yeah.
because it's not, all those little NFTs are being sold now, which is, it's basically, it's connected to Bitcoin. And the idea is you create like a number that goes along with a piece of art, and you can buy that number and you own it. And then you can transfer it. It doesn't imbue you any actual ownership over the piece of art, but there's one number that's connected with that art and you own it. So,
But I don't think that, like, I'm going to maybe misuse, like, NFT, but you have to have something tangible. I think for art, it has to be something tangible or an experience, and that doesn't feel like either.
right. But some artists love those NFTs because they can sell it, and you can make an NFT where if it ever changes hands again, you automatically get 10% if someone sells it. So the original artist gets money. So if the value goes up, the artist can continue to collect money on that piece of art. So artists aren't necessarily against it. And I agree with you. Like, I would never buy an NFT because I want either an object, art, or an experience to go along with what I purchase. I don't want a baseball card of a piece of art that I can hold on to.
Well, it reminds me of like years and years ago when Bill Gates, like, because he has his mansion here, and there I read an article. It was maybe in the New Yorker or Vanity Fair about how he had projections of the art that he owned, like in like this pristine framed experience, but it wasn't the actual thing. It was just like a projection, and that kind of bummed me out a little bit. I thought you were gonna say, what's the company that
MSCHF.
I thought you were gonna say MSCHF took these drawings of the fairies. And I think after we've been talking for a while, I think I know what ones you're talking about, and they're not great. I mean, it's fine, but
it's a fine drawing. To me, it only has value because Andy Warhol did it. Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a cute drawing.
Yeah, like it's fine. It's not like it's nothing to like write home about. But I thought you were gonna say they destroyed it. That they like cut it up into little cubes, and then put those like in some kind of encaustic work or some kind of like more modern presentation, and then that became the art, which I think I would have been okay with that too for Andy Warhol, not for other art, but for him, because I also think he would have been like, this is art, this is real art.
Because the revenue was part of his art.
Yeah, and he was kind of like he kind of made fun of art collectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and it also was really interesting, too, because, he was started as a commercial artist, and he really, like, blurred the line between a fine and commercial artist as well. So that, to me, is also really interesting.
Yeah.
So MSCHF has an app that you can download for your phone that you can see their new projects as they're downloaded. And I was going to talk to you about this outside of the podcast, but instead I thought I would talk to you inside the podcast. So here's my question. If we had known about the Andy Warhol...
Absolutely.
You would have wanted to buy one.
Absolutely.
You would have been all over that.
I would want to buy that more than I'd want to buy the original fairies.
Right, because it's part of the story. It's less money.
It's intriguing and it's modern and interesting and it's kind of cool. And I love what they did with those shoes too, and that they got this mega billion-dollar corporation to get their panties in a bunch over 1,000 pairs of shoes.
Yeah,
I like it. It feels very relevant and current and modern.
Well, they've done 59 projects so far. Museum of Forgeries is what this one is called.
Yeah.
And it's number 59. The Satan shoes were number 43. So they've done a lot of projects in between. So what I'm going to do is I'll send you the app.
Okay.
And you can set it up so it has a notification on your phone when they do a drop and decide.
I probably won't even download that. Oh my gosh, David. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I interrupt you?
Of course.
I would love a museum of foraging. Oh, can we make that happen? Where
Sure.
you like forage for little mushrooms or little rocks, or like you're foraging for like little treasures that are hidden. And they don't even have to be organic treasures, but just like a foraging treasure hunt.
I love it.
I do
for
too.
it.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
and we're recording this on November 7th,
Okay.
and their next drop, as they call it, is 16 hours and 23 minutes from now.
Okay.
So we can see if that's something that we're interested in or not.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to want to like put the effort into it, but as an like afterthought, I'm like, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
But it's like Banksy, like it's cool, but I'm not, I don't know. I don't want to put any effort into it.
All right.
Because I wouldn't be as cool.
I'm just telling you, it seemed like each one of these projects that I've read about, because I've read about other ones too,
Yeah.
there's something about it that makes me think that you'd be like, maybe I want a little piece of that.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to have to set my flippin' phone alarm for 16 hours and what'd you say?
1622.
Oh, jeez. Oh my God. Now that's all I'm going to think about. I won't be able to sleep. Oh,
You won't be able to sleep. You'll be like, oh.
Well, thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you thought it was interesting, and you're cool with it too,
I'm
which is
pro.
really
Yep,
interesting.
I am pro.
Because I wasn't sure if you would.
Well, are you?
Sure.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think
Yeah.
I just think it's a good art project.
Yeah.
The Warhol estate has sued other people, and they got sued over the Satan shoes too. So I'm assuming they're also wanting to have a lawsuit come from this.
To like get a little bit of heat.
Promote the
Yeah.
MSCHF company. So I think the legalities part of it is really interesting. And if they have a good enough legal team, they could really define how art is legally treated in the future, which I think is an important battle to have. So I'm kind of glad some clever people are involved in that.
But I do think that then, like art snobs will change the definition of art and marginalize this company and other like mass produced or like marketed art.
Well,
Because they're snobs and they're old fashioned.
well, part of the whole NFT thing is to take the reins from the art snobs, because if you can own part of a piece of art for in some other way for less money, it deflates that, because
I think that's never going to happen.
it's just intriguing.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, like it's intriguing to
Yeah.
see. But anyway, okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and I love you, Pepper.
Yeah, I love you, David. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. And to read our show notes, sign up for our newsletter at bafflingcyclops.com.